Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Music Box. My name is Mike Miller. I'm the managing partner here, and I've been running this series now 7 years. Maybe I should just declare this the last one. What do you think? Well, I can't, because if you've seen on your table, guys, I've already announced our winter-spring lineup, and I'm telling you, we got some killer stuff coming up. In fact, look at the first one in January. A lady has written a book called Lake Erie Murders and Mayhem. It's always the most popular topic. You know, she has researched all these Lake Erie pirates that have actually worked the lakes right up until this decade. And you wouldn't believe there are incidents of piracy out on the lake even to today. So she's on, I think, Thursday the 5th, so highly recommend, guys, you make a reservation for that. It's actually filling up pretty fast. So, folks, you know I always like to thank our sponsors. Believe it or not, Yuengling came on board as a sponsor, so you see them at the bottom of the menu with a discount. They pay the money we need to kind of promote the series, and you know, so here's the Yuengling, guys. And then, of course, I'm really proud that the Cleveland History Center is involved in this series too. They provide a lot of our storytellers. And again, they also provide promotional support. They probably have the greatest mailing list of people interested in Cleveland history, and they help us promote. So just love them as partners. In fact, guys, if you take a look closely at the schedule, we're going to have kind of a series within the series. A fellow by the name, I think a lot of you might have seen him already here, John Grabowski. John literally wrote most of the Encyclopedia Cleveland History. He's the lead historian at the Cleveland History Center. And he teaches history. He's the professor of history at Case Western. And John loves the series, but his angle is going to be Clevelanders that changed the world. He's calling it Ripples. He wants to tell the stories of how Cleveland has, and Clevelanders or situations in Cleveland went out to the rest of the world and kind of helped change the world. And I just love that angle. He's a great storyteller, so look him up. I know he's in the first couple weeks of our winter schedule. So, folks, again, something to look at. Hi, guys. Hey. All right, so, we actually have to organize this in late December because Kevin is still working his butt off in the music industry. And he does able to take a break here, come home and visit family right here at the tables over here at the holiday. But I was just so thrilled. I think, Kevin, the last time you were here actually was way back in 2019. I was looking at it. And so very excited. And of course, I know a lot of you guys know Buddy, who has been around the rock scene in Cleveland for a long time now. Buddy, I'm going to start with you. Okay. All right. And this is a simple question I ask every storyteller. Where were you born? Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school?
Okay, I was born in Cleveland, and I lived in Cleveland Heights as a kid, and went to St. Joseph High School, and there you go, yeah, just like I told you to do, okay? And, I'm a Cleveland guy.
All right, cool. Kevin, same question. Where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Euclid, Ohio. I was raised in Euclid, Ohio. I went to Euclid High, president of my class.
Oh, yeah.
Voted most likely to OD by the teachers, but I fooled them. my education after that started a lot with this guy right here.
All right, well, that's going to be my next question. How'd you two meet? Who wants to go first?
Okay, I'm gonna go first. I'm a huge fan of music. I grew up being a huge fan of music. This guy is really a Cleveland legend. He's been playing in bands all his life, and I was a fan. And I got to meet him, and I started to go around and annoy him constantly. I would show up at his house and ask questions and do this and that. I mean, eventually he said, "Look, if you're gonna keep doing this, I'm gonna put you to work." So he did. Buddy is my mentor in this business, and Buddy gave me an education that I couldn't have gotten anywhere else. That preceded me getting out on the national touring circuit. But that's how I met him, by annoying him and constantly coming around.
Well, wait, but you guys worked on a number of early projects together, right? I mean,
Well, initially he was about 17 years old, and he came up to me and he wanted to be a roadie for my band Rainbow Canyon. And a lot of kids want to be roadies because they want to have fun, but they
drugs.
Right, they really don't want to work. But I told, so I told Kevin, I said, listen, if you want to be with this band, you have to be as professional as the band is, because that's what it's all about. And it took me a while. I had to whip him into shape, but he really not only did he become one of my dearest friends, but he became a pro in national business, traveled the world with Van Halen for 30 years and been with so many different big rock star bands, and so you did well, Grasshopper.
Thank you, buddy. I want to explain one thing. At one point, I kept questioning how much Buddy was pushing me to do, and Buddy said, and this kind of really exemplifies and capsulizes it. He said, "Do you want this to be a hobby, or do you want to do this as a job?" And at that point, I realized, and like Buddy said, I went on to do some other things.
Thank you very much.
All right, now I got to ask. So, Kevin, I know everybody in this audience has heard the term roadie. And describe the job. I mean, what's the day-to-day job like? So everybody has a sense of that.
Well, first of all, we prefer to be called a production technician. That's kind of like a garbage man's called a sanitary engineer. What it entails is, if people think, or people say to you, "Oh, you guys don't work, you just party with the band." No, there's a lot of crew people here. It's 18-hour day, and it's not a party. You really dedicate it to working your butt off, and it starts out very early. One of the most important things is be on time, Alistair Watson. Be on time. Anyways, and it's an entire day of, you have to know what you're doing. You have to coordinate with a bunch of other road people. Some of my crew people are over there in the corner with Sammy Hagar, Joe Satriani, some of the best in the business. But
But you literally set up the stages. I mean, you put every piece of equipment in place, you put every guitar in place, you put the drum kit in place. I mean,
the lights, the sound, yeah.
You haul everything out of a truck and put it all in place, and then wait for the show to be over, and then dismantle everything and put it away in the truck so you can make the next city the next day.
Exactly, and that's why at this point I'm looking to retire from the road, because most of everybody I work with is about 35, 40 years younger than me. But yeah, we do that, and we do it many days in a row.
Cool. Now, Buddy, you kicked off your career in bands, but then took kind of a turn in your career. After being away from Cleveland, came back to Cleveland, and we're working with Henry LeConte at the Agora as, his partner. But mostly, I don't think a lot of people know. They kind of credit maybe Henry. You were really the booking agent. What's involved in being the booking agent? Again, I'm just trying to get some of the, what you were doing kind of out of the way at the beginning.
Well, first of all, I wasn't really the agent. I was the booker, or the talent buyer, as you would say. But you know, I had played for Hank at the Agora for years in various bands. You know, in charades, we were on Epic Records. I played for Hank, and then of course later in Rainbow Canyon. And there came a time that I was living in LA, and it was time for me to hang up my rock and roll shoes because I had already had 2 kids and I had 1 on the way. And so Hank had always told me, when you get done playing, well, let's do something, let's work together. So I called Hank up and we decided we were going to start a management company to manage groups. So put everything in the truck, went back to Cleveland, and about 2 weeks later, Hank says to me, listen, I got a better idea for you. Instead of owning 50% of a small thing, which would be the management company, you're better off to own 10% of a big thing. And, you know, he was very, yes, he was persuasive. So,
I was going to say Italian.
So anyway, long story short, Hank was a smart guy. He had some great ideas, really super creative. And among other things, he wanted to you know, open Agoras, which eventually we did over the years, because I came back from LA in '76, and we opened Agoras in Atlanta, in Miami, in Tampa, in Houston, Texas, Dallas, Hartford, Connecticut, and also New Haven, Connecticut. But we had 5 in Ohio too, which was Cleveland, Columbus, Toledo, Youngstown, and
So you weren't busy at all. I mean, this is like a...
What?
You weren't busy at all.
No, not at all. But for me, you know, and I learned so much from being on that side of the table, Mike, because being an artist, a musician, you're trying to make it, and you really don't know how the music business works. But all of a sudden, I got on the mailing list for all the labels. So every month I would get a box of albums, about 12 albums, right? And I soon found out that not every album is going to be what they call a priority push, because they would pick 1, 2, or 3, maybe 3, and those were the ones that the record company wanted to push, and the other ones hit, well, good, you know. But what for me, what was big fun was Baby Acts. Now, people that don't know what a Baby Act is, it's a group that unknown, it's their first album. And they're, you know, the idea is, are they going to make it? Can they break the record? And so the Agora, and now this is where WMMS comes in, Mr. John Gorman.
John Gorman's in the audience, guys, from MMS.
But MMS was, and John had built the station into really a growing powerhouse, and the Agora was sort of like the clubhouse for MMS, because the buzzard was all over the walls. And you know, when we do the coffee break concert, we have probably Matt the Cat come out and MC, and even all of the shows that we did on the nights out at the Agora, Mondays and Tuesdays, we would have an MMS MC. But the fun thing for me, and I had to bring my cheat sheet, was all these baby acts that I was able to put on stage that are in the Hall of Fame today. And there's dozens of them.
Let's not go through all of them.
Okay, so you got like
50. There are 50 of them, guys.
You got the Pretenders, the AC/DC, U2, Journey, Lou Reed, The Clash, Talking Head, Tom Waits, The Police, Heart. Well, no, Van Halen never played, man. No, well, not in my time. But you got Tom Petty, Blondie, Judas Priest, Alice Cooper, the Sex Pistols, that was an interesting story, Joan Jett, the Cars, John Mellencamp, Hall & Oates, Dire Straits, the Go-Go's, Iggy Pop.
Okay, he is going to go through all of them.
Oh yeah, Elvis Costello, Patti Smith, Pat Benatar, the Ramones, and on and on.
Well, wait a minute. Okay, Baby Act. So these are albums that they're scratching their heads on a little bit. They're up-and-coming bands, and you guys booked them. You booked them. And, you know, now, do you have an equal list of the failures?
Well, We don't talk about that too much, Mike. We don't talk, you know. But
It's a much bigger list.
No, but the interesting thing was that I learned how do you break a record. Well, first of all, you got to get airplay. That's number one. Second of all, you got to get a booking agent to book you onto a tour, hopefully as an opening act with a headliner, and then you have to get a really good manager. See, to me, there's three things you need to make it. You got to have talent. You got to have luck. You got to be lucky. But you got to have a good manager. And then when I was trying to make it, I didn't know that there was an artist development guy at a record company, or a record promotion guy, or an A&R guy who actually would try to make things happen. And it was a learning experience for me.
Now, Kevin, so this is mid-70s that he's doing this in Cleveland. Where are you right now?
Well, I had moved out to California, I think around 75, right after the Raspberries split up. I'd been working with the Raspberries and Wally Bryson, and I put a band together and moved out there, and shortly after that, Buddy moved out there, and so I would run into Buddy all the time. He actually became the manager of a really huge rock club called the Country Club, where again, he was booking all these incredible acts. So I was, at the time I was doing like George Duke, the Beach Boys during that period of time.
So as a roadie?
Yeah, but then I fell into the Fleetwood Mac camp for about 5 years. And I would do a lot of work with Eric Carmen in the studio, take Eric on the road. And then in 81, as I was leaving the Fleetwood Mac group, I met Michael Anthony and started a 30-year run with Van Halen. But I wasn't just exclusive to Van Halen. I ended up working for almost every band that opened up for us, like 80s rock bands. Like somebody asked me tonight if I knew who Bret Michaels was, and I said, yeah, I was his guitar tech and I was the crew chief for 5 tours. But anyways, that's what I did during that period of time.
All right. So good histories, guys, but let's get into some juicy stories. All right. So and this should be the easiest question of the night. Your favorite story? What's one of the most amazing things or horrible things that happened backstage, buddy, that you witnessed and is burned indelibly into your head?
Well, I could talk about the Lou Reed story, but I better not. It's a
You gotta tell it now.
Oh, there's an adult audience. Come on.
Well, okay, so I'll skip the Lou Reed one.
Oh, you gotta tell it, buddy. You brought it up.
All right, so Lou Reed, we booked Lou Reed into the club, and in his contract it said he had to be picked up at the airport with a Lincoln Town Car, and we kind of forgot that. And so, his plane is coming in. We get a call from his manager. He says, you're going to pick Lou up. And so we're scrambling, and Hank LeConte had a Lincoln Town Car. So Hank went to pick up Lou at the airport. And so Lou's standing at the curb with, here's Lou, and then quite an astonishingly beautiful transvestite. Okay? And so they get in the car, and Hank's driving, taking them to Swingos, which where all the groups stayed at Swingos. And Hank's changing lanes, and he's looking in his rearview mirror, and he's seeing something that you don't want to see in the back seat. So Hank immediately turned away, and he didn't look in the mirror again until they got to Swingos.
Somebody was servicing somebody else.
There was other things, like we had Hall & Oates for 2 shows, a 7 o'clock and a 10 o'clock, and they were both sold out. So the fire marshal was hassling us at the time for overcrowding. Like, why would we overcrowd, Kevin? No.
It's never happened.
So at any rate, so the first show was going on. Hall & Oates is on stage. Fire marshal comes to the front door. Stop the show. We're going to count heads, And so immediately I'm thinking this is going to be a riot, okay? And so we had a Cleveland cop that was the front door man. And we talked a little bit, and finally, and we had 1,000 people on the sidewalk waiting to get in for the second show. So finally, he said, the fire marshal says, no, I'm going in. So he tries to push back the Cleveland cop's arm. The cop arrests him for assaulting an officer. And so we had to take the fire marshal and put him in the office and hold him until the police would come for about 4 hours.
Hey, I want to add something. I worked a lot at the Agora, as a lot of us did, some people here. A lot of us, we owe Hank Lacani from our beginning. But Hank, or somebody, I don't know if it was Buddy, but they booked King Crimson on their only club tour, on their first United States tour, and they played the Agora. And so we're getting ready, and there's just, like Buddy said, thousands of people outside, and I see the fire marshal come in. I was the stage manager. I go, oh shit. And I walked up to him and I said, so, are you here to take numbers or whatever? He goes, no, I came early so I could get the best seat. And he goes, you put me up front and I'll just look the other way.
That must have been because the other guy was in jail. Anyways, so Kevin, on the road, 30 years, Van Halen. Come on, backstage story.
Well,
You're going to write a book someday. You might as well just tell it to the crowd.
No, I am, and that's one thing I want to revisit when I get time off the road to really get back to that. But I don't know. I'm going to do this because for my late mother. I'll tell this real quick story. I'm from Cleveland, so we're playing in Cleveland, and as Buddy said, we're staying at Swingles, which is like a rock and roll Mecca hotel. Doesn't exist anymore. And my mom would get up very early in the morning, and she ran the blood donor center at St. Vincent Charity Hospital. And she would draw blood for open heart surgery, like with the surgeries at like 5, 6 o'clock. So she, going at 2 or 3. Anyways, I was coming to town. We had a couple days off for staying at Swingles. I told my mother, bring change clothes. Come by and I'll take you to dinner. The restaurant, Swingles, was a 5-star restaurant. So we had dinner, and after dinner, I said to my mother, well, I just dropped $250 back in the 70s. On dinner, at least you could do is buy me an after dinner drink. So we go across the hall into the bar. Now, there's I don't know how many people back then, but there's over 100 crew people on Van Halen back then. And by 8 o'clock at night, they're all in the bar, socializing, drinking, looking for company, whatever. So we sit down, and my mom says, I'm going to go get, she said, I'm going to go powder my nose. And I said, Mom, on this tour, that means something entirely different. But anyway, she said, order me a drink and get what you want, and I'll be right back. So everybody saw me come in with my mother. And my mother, at the time, all her life, she was a stunning woman. She was beautiful. So all these people they don't know I'm from Cleveland. So they send an emissary over, our wardrobe girl, and she comes up, Dugan, come on, she's beautiful. But she's old enough to be your mother. just then my mother comes back up, and she said, that old broad is old enough to be your mother. So I said, Denise, this old broad, I'd like to introduce you to her. It's my mother. I remember looks at me and goes, what'd you say? And I said, never mind. So she goes back and tells everybody, well, just then the stride comes in, David Lee Roth, so he hears, what's going on? And they tell him, so he comes all the way around the bar and comes up behind me. He goes, hey, Kev, I understand this little lady's your mother. And he goes, how you doing? And she goes, hi, who are you, a young Kevin's crew? No, man, I'm the lead singer, and I swear, she looks up and goes, you're such a nice looking boy. Why don't you do something with your hair? And Roth turns to me and he goes, so, Kev, you got a job here in Cleveland? Because you don't have one with us anymore. And then he said, nice to meet you, and he left.
All right, that's what it says. All right, buddy, tell the story. What the heck is Naked City all about?
Well, okay. Yeah, he was definitely there. We had, this was my band, Rainbow Canyon. We had just come back from Caribou Ranch where we recorded our album, Rolling in the Rockies. And so we're waiting for them to get the album on the release schedule. And I'm sitting in our manager's office and there's a magazine on the table. So I'm going through it. It's a trade magazine about different events. And they talk, all of a sudden, here's the thing about Miss Nude America pageant. This is like the Miss America pageant, except they didn't have clothes on. And so I'm thinking, wow, this could be a good way to get some exposure for the band, because at the time, not really like that, but But at any rate, you know, there was no there was no TikTok, no no internet, no nothing, and the only way to get. But I'm thinking, well, Associated Press. If you sometimes they'll send out a picture of things, and they'll get all over the country in newspapers and then little TV shows. So I booked us into the event to be the entertainment. Okay, and it was at Naked City was a nudist colony in Roselawn, Indiana, and I hired a photographer to take pictures because you needed to.
Of course.
You needed to have pictures sent out on the wire, you know. And so I told my manager, who would remain nameless, Mike called it, and so I said, listen, all you got to do is have the girl in the office write a press release. We'll give you the pictures and you send it out on Monday. So at any rate, it was quite a swinging gig, and we got to the front door, and you know there was about 3,000 spectators there, and about half of them, you know, had no clothes on, and so we weren't supposed to take our clothes off, but we're killing time before we go on stage, and so our guitar player, Greg Randolo, he's walking around with his guitar on in his cutoffs, and all of a sudden I hear my friend over here yell, "Oh my God, Greg took his pants off!"
And Greg said, "When in Rome."
Yeah. So we all wound up taking our clothes off, and we played the gig, and it was a fun gig. But the man.
Where are the pictures?
Well,
There are pictures.
I'm selling them in out of my trunk after the gig. So there you have it, Naked City.
All right.
Oh, can I interject real quick?
Sure.
Talking about
So you were there too, Kevin?
Oh yeah.
And you were naked too?
I was naked too. On the crew, there was one guy, Jay Moeller, rest in peace, who he takes all his clothes off. I turn and look, and he's wearing his work boots and socks and nothing else. And he goes, "How do I look?" But anyways, there were some Japanese people who were covering this event, and I will never forget this because Buddy had a clear bass drum head. And he just kept going up. What are you taking pictures of? Oh, that's not how he hits the bass drum.
But I had to do some double beats and triplets on the bass drum so they couldn't see too good until the guy walked.
That was definitely one of the most unique gigs ever.
All right.
And Buddy was smart enough to get a promo picture and used as a promo picture.
Under the bass drum pictures?
No, that was for Japanese magazine.
All right. Well, wait a minute. We're going to really take a left turn here. All right, Kevin. Van Halen, Naked City. Tell your Carly Simon story.
Okay, I worked a lot on and off for years and years for Eric Carmen, who's a Cleveland native. And at one point we were doing this incredible album, which never quite broke through, called Boats Against Current, and we were at Richard Perry's studio in LA, which is called Studio 55, not Studio 54. So anyways, I'm always out in the lobby, you know, while they're running tracks and stuff, and one day Richard Perry came up to me and said, "I know you work for me, I don't know what you do, I don't really know who you are." And he said, "But I have an assignment for you." And I said, "I don't actually work for you." And he goes, "What do you do now?" And the bottom line is, he said, "We're gonna bring Carly Simon in here with a full orchestra, and we're gonna record 2 tracks, but basically concentrate on one, which is gonna be soundtrack for a movie, which was Nobody Does It Better, which eventually won Academy Award." And he hired me to become Carly Simon's assistant for the next 3 days, which was incredible. And I mean, I watched that whole procedure. And when she was done on the 3rd day and she left, I walked her out to a limo and she kissed me on the cheek. And I had this huge, Carly Simon's lips, you know. If her and Mick Jagger were on opposite sides of the street, they could lean over and kiss each other and not step off the curb. Anyways, people kept saying to me, "You know, you got these huge, kiss lipstick marks on your face. You know, you should wash that." I said, "No, I'm not going to wash it. As long as it's there. It's from Carly Simon." But I got to do that, and it was pretty incredible, and it won the Academy Award.
There you go. And speaking of Mick Jagger, your band opened for the Rolling Stones.
Yes.
1964. Tell that story.
Well,
What band first?
I was in a band called Baki and the Visions, and they were before I joined the group. You know, they were had record deals on big labels, and at the time there were no albums; it was all singles. But they had some hit singles, and so we were booked to open to the Rolling Stones, and so I brought a little Kodak Instamatic little camera, and you know, even I was 17 years old. Okay, and so here we are opening to the Rolling Stones, and first of all, I did take pictures in there, and they can be seen, by the way, on the website Cleveland Rock and Soul, and the pictures are there. But it was amazingly primitive. I mean, they had no sound system. Mick Jagger was singing through the house PA system. The drums were set up on the floor. There was no riser, and nothing was mic'd. The drums were not mic'd, and there was no mics on the guitar players or the bass player. About 3 songs in, 6 girls, you know, jump on the stage. One girl got behind Charlie Watts and put her arms around him, and they both fell backwards, and their legs were up in the air, and the cops said, "Stop the show, stop the show." So the Cleveland police did stop the show, but they were able to resume it once the crowd decided they were going to act presentable.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, now, have you ever run into, along the way, the Rolling Stones again? I mean, do you remember that gig in Cleveland?
Mick called me the other day, but I couldn't take it because I was on with Ringo.
Oh, okay.
No, that's a David Spiro joke.
Okay. Now, Kevin, you've told this story, you know, last time here, which was a long time ago, so I don't think anybody's gonna remember it. But one of my favorite stories, we're going from Carly Simon to Johnny Cash. Tell your Johnny Cash story.
Okay, like I said, I spent some time in the Fleetwood Mac camp, and during that period of time, I would be assigned as a stage manager to take out some of the acts that were breaking that they managed. And so I was doing that with a guy named Danny Duma, who was signed to Warner Brothers. And we ended up opening up for Johnny and June Cash's daughter. Actually, I think it's Johnny's stepdaughter. But anyways, it was at the Bottom Line in New York, and it was a couple nights. And then the first night, and this supposedly became a really you know, serious rift between them, which wasn't true at all. But June and Johnny Cash showed up unannounced, and they didn't want her to know. This is Carly and Carter Cash, by the way, who was married to Nick Lowe for a while. Anyway, so they came in and they got seated in the back, and the whole thing was the riff. I'll throw this in real quick. Was she was introducing a song? She said, "I wrote the song with my husband, and it's about wife swapping." And I saw her immediately turn and look, and I see June Cash go like this, and she goes, and the moral of the story is you can take the girl out of the country, but you can't take that out of the girl. And June Cash kind of slipped under that table. But anyways, during the changeover, Johnny Cash came around the corner, and I'm coming around the other side with 2 guitars, and I ran right into him. And I love Johnny Cash, by the way. I mean, he's an American icon. And I slammed right into him, dropped one of the guitars, and I look up, and he goes, "Well, excuse me," and he goes, "I'm Johnny Cash." Just like the TV show, and I literally went, "Thank you, God." And I got to meet him, and then he goes, I'm picking up the guitar, and he goes, "Son, can I give you a bit of advice?" I would tune them guitars back up again. And he said, "Can you show me where my daughter's dressing room is?" "Right this way." And I just threw the guitars down. I'm hanging out with Johnny Cash now. But that was one of the people I always wanted to meet, and I got to do it.
Very good. Okay, so let's do some name dropping, though. I mean, you know, go backstage. You know, again,
I got my cheat sheet here.
All right, but go backstage in your head for a minute, and you know, who were some of the really nice people in the business that you were just, you know, that really kind of amazed you just from their kindness?
Felix Cavalier from the Rascals, Dion from Dion and the Belmont, and they were really nice people. In general, rockers sometimes aren't the nicest, you know. Like, for example, I had Elvis Costello at the Agora, and he was a baby act, you know, just trying to make it. His manager was a guy named Jake Riviera, who was, I believe, trying to make Elvis into like the angry young man or something. So I come backstage with Jane Scott, you know.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'm bringing Jane backstage because she wanted to meet Elvis. And Jake Rivera says, what do you get with that old bag? Get her out of there. And I had to get in his face. I said, you can't talk to her that way. We had a little standoff, but eventually Jane, well, yeah, I left with Jane, and it wasn't the nicest interaction I've had with him. The Cars, by the way, for example, now that's a kind of a cool story, because when I was about 17, I played on the pilot to the Upbeat Show. Anybody here ever see the Upbeat TV show?
Yeah, I think everybody is.
Okay, well, like any TV show that's going to be syndicated, you got to have a pilot. And so I get a call to come down on a Monday night, Channel 5. They're going to shoot this pilot. Well, the one other band that was on there was a band called Grasshoppers, and it had the one guitar player was this, you know, really good-looking kid with a blonde pompadour. His name was Benny Orchikowski, and they called him Benny Level Letters. And so, you know, flash forward about 14, 15 years, and the Cars come in, and who's with the Cars but Benny Orchikowski, only he's now called Ben Orr. And so we had a little conversation about the Upbeat Show, and it's just amazing how things work out, and how he wound up in Boston hooking up with the Rico Casa. You know, they made some great records.
Absolutely. So again, I can't imagine who tries to get backstage to the Van Halen shows and, you know, kind of push their way in, Kevin. So you got any of those stories that you're willing to tell?
Well, there was a system which David Lee Roth used to talk about that involved backstage passes, and the backstage passes weren't handed out for free. And I'm just gonna leave it at that, you know. But yeah, there was a whole system that we had. We had a barricade that we carried with us, and this is during the Roth years, and it was numbered. And Roth would see a young lady that you know, kind of stoked his fancy, and he would just radio, you know, he'd go like this to one of us, and we'd get on the radio and go third row, you know, 10 feet back, and all of a sudden that girl and her friends all had backstage passes. And it's funny because, you know, if they were with a boyfriend, the boyfriend would come back and, you know, they'd get to the backstage area. But where do you think you're going? Women only. No, go. Hey, I wanted to say something. You asked, like, who's some of the best, nicest, and some of the worst people. I really want to say one of the nicest people from the time I spent in the Fleetwood Mac camp, and Godspeed, was Christine McVie. She was one of the nicest people you could ever meet. She just passed away.
But give us a story about her. I mean, I've heard so many great stories about just her kindness. I mean,
well, one of the great things she did, at one point she said, well, we've been off the road for a while, and she wanted to, she'd been writing songs, she wanted to kind of tune it all up and put it together and do a record. So she reached out to a fellow Clevelander, a really good friend of a lot of ours, named Todd Sharp, and asked Todd to help her finish writing songs, and they ended up co-writing a whole record, and Todd became her musical director and took her on the road. And that was, I got to see that a bunch of times. I worked the rehearsals for Todd, and that was great, very cool. No,
I know Todd grew up in
We're having
Cleveland
our own
Heights.
conversation.
Todd grew up in Cleveland Heights, right next door to my cousin.
You know what, when I was 11, I mean, when Todd was 11, I was 13, I met Todd in the Battle of the Bands, and his band won because of him. He was like shredding at 11. Hall & Oates came and took him away when he was 17. And then right after that, I ended up becoming his guitar tech. We've been friends for life, but I was guitar tech for years with Bob Welsh, and I worked a lot with him on a lot of projects in LA.
Now, okay, they don't know what a guitar tech does. What does a guitar tech do? Well, no, half of them do, but half of them don't.
Okay, well, you really need to learn how to, as much as you can about a guitar. You tune the guitars, you change the strings, you maintain them, you do guitar changes during the show. I mean, in the old days, when I first started out, guitar techs just basically set stuff up, and guys tune their own guitars. But, you know, with the way that technology has moved on, Now you have to know how to strip a guitar down, how to put it together, how to do all the maintenance and stuff. Same thing with the drum tech. We got one of the best drum techs in the world right over there. His name's Jose. He works with me. He works for all these famous drummers. You have to know everything about that instrument. You have to know everything about the guy you work for. I mean, I've been working for Michael Anthony for 42 years, and I tell people, I can tell you when he's going to sneeze, and I can. I mean, I know him that well. But you really have to know every little thing about your job, and about the person you work for.
And about the instrument, I mean.
Well, yeah, that goes without saying, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But I tell you what, Kevin Dugan, really, from a young age, he showed me that he had the desire to be good and to be a pro, and he is a pro. He's in the Roadie Hall of Fame, and one of the first ones inducted into it. And he cares about the job. He's not just there to have fun and to be chicks, although that's probably part of it. But I mean, he's a pro, and I'm so proud of him that he's my friend, and that he went went all the way to the stars.
I really want to stress something though. The education that I got from Buddy and working for Buddy on a daily basis. And it wasn't easy, and Buddy was a hard taskmaster. But I was so prepared. I remember an incident one time where a truck broke down, and I called him and I go, what are we going to do? We're going to have to cancel the gig. And he goes, I don't want you to ever call me and say something like that again. You want to do this job, you do this job. You figure it out, you make it happen. Or just, get another job. Do you want to do this for real or what? And that was like one of those turning points. And I realized that what he said was true. Stuff like that happened in the future, and I would just get to a gig and tell him what happened. He said, what'd you do? And I'd say, I took care of it. Because that's what you have to do. And it was because of this gentleman, seriously, that I have 32 gold platinum records, and I've been with a lot of bands and traveled around the world. It would never happen if he hadn't been as tenacious as he was and educated me the way he did. And I thank him for that, seriously.
That's the best part of tonight. Okay, so you kind of said it earlier, you kind of just threw it out. I was done with my, being in bands, and you had to find another direction. But, I mean, why? Why'd you make that decision?
Well, at the time, I had been on 4 record labels, and had records come out, and some did okay, and some did pretty good. But
I mean, you had some hits.
Yeah.
I mean, like top 10 national hits.
Well, but at the point, I had just, but my manager at the time had really kind of did some skullduggery. And by the way, I have a book coming out, and it's called Cleveland Rock and Roll Tales, straight out of Cleveland. But my manager, once again, who we may name was Mike Belton, he had done some shady stuff, and I was really ready to move on. And I was the guy who was always reading Billboard magazine instead of the magazines about
and instead of your subscription to Naked City. But go ahead.
Right. Exactly. So no, it was time for me, and at the time that I came back to Cleveland and started working with Hank at the Agora, I mean that building was like just rocking. We had downstairs we had a club called The Mistake, which was we had all blues bands. Upstairs we were going 7 nights a week. We had dancing 5 nights a week. We had concerts Mondays and Tuesdays. We had the coffee break concert. We had we did Legend Valley, which was 3 outdoor shows every summer in Columbus. What's that? Oh, upstairs we had a recording studio upstairs on the 2nd floor of the building, and we recorded all of the shows. And Hank was smart enough to put together a little radio network of 10 radio stations around the country where he would. And at the time, he would send out actual tapes, 3 tapes of the shows, and it was a way to promote the Agora. And you know, one year we had a TV show. We had a television show called On Stage at the Agora. We did Todd Rundgren, we did Southside Johnny, we did Toto, and quite a few others. And so this is an interesting story. One night we had Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes, and so they're on stage, and it's a 4-camera shoot, and it's and what happens is, after the thing is, you do your post-production, it aired on Channel 8, I believe, in Cleveland, and it was simulcast on WMMS, so you could turn off the sound on the TV and you could hear it in stereo coming off of MMS. And so, at that same night that the Southside Johnny is doing the show, Bruce Springsteen is doing the show at the Coliseum. So what happens is, Bruce got done before Southside. Bruce jumps in a van, comes out, banging on the stage door, so they open the stage door, and Bruce jumps on stage with Southside. And it's pandemonium. The crowd went berserk. And so I'm standing there thinking, now this is a TV show. And so, you know, they did the 3, he was on stage for the last 3 numbers, and I'm going, oh man, I can't wait to see this when it's done. Next day, we get a call from John Landau, who was his manager, Bruce's manager. He says, oh, by the way, you can't use that footage of Bruce. Because I don't want, he's never done a video before, and I don't want the first video to be this jam thing. So we had to say, oh, really? Are you sure? You know, but in any event, it was quite a good show, and we brought Bruce.
Do you have that footage? Do you know if you have that footage?
The footage is actually at the Western Reserve Historical.
My partner, I can go get it.
Yeah, you can go look at it. Then we did another show with Bruce Springsteen as the headliner. That was a 10-city simulcast, and it was to celebrate the WMMS some success, and then maybe an anniversary. At any rate, that was an amazing show. And you know, some young kid engineer comes in who's going to do the radio mix. And it turned out to be it was Jimmy Iovine, who was probably about 18 years old, and today he's owns Interscope Records, and he's in the Hall of Fame. But it was an amazing show, and they finally released it as an album, and it's out now.
All right, cool.
And Jimmy Iovine also worked on all the Raspberries records too.
All right, cool. All right, so I'm going to throw each of you similar questions, and then we'll turn it over to the audience. Jake, you got to get up pretty soon with the microphone. It's gonna, so we can get it onto the. Yeah, we're recording this tonight, guys. So you might hear it on Cleveland Rock and Soul here pretty soon. So, anyways, Kevin, again, be honest. Another story from backstage that just kind of burned in your memory, good or bad, you know, something that, you know, you probably haven't told many people. And I'll tell 100. Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking, you know. I don't know, you know, down through the years, I've been able to meet a lot of people that really wanted to see what Van Halen was about when they were up and coming. And, you know, I mean, every night I would turn around and there'd be somebody standing behind me. One of the people that I just adored, you know, I mean, I saw him open up his tour 2 nights in a row in Cleveland, Ohio. We were part of breaking him was David Bowie. And I got to know Bowie over the years a little bit, you know, not like we, you know, dined a lot together. But, you know, he was very interested in Van Halen. He came one night and he'd stand there. You know, another night I turn around and there's Mick Jagger standing there, you know. Stuff like that was incredible. And I gotta say, I was in the right place at the right time when I got that job, and I ran Van Halen's crew for 30 years. I've been working for Michael Anthony, the bass player, for 42 years. Paul McCartney's guy's been with him for 38 years. And by the way, he is the nicest guy in rock and roll, Michael Anthony. I can't say I know Paul McCartney, but I heard he's a pretty nice guy too. But anyways, you know, like I said, that just all the people I got to meet in the years that I was with Van Halen.
And all right, you know, I meet a lot here, not at that level, maybe, but most of them are just regular Joes. They're coming to go to work. You know, I don't think, you know, there isn't a lot of stardom you know, that really walks in the doors to be here. You know, they just are coming to do their job, but they're looking forward to. They always are looking forward to the show. They're looking forward to the audience and being in front of that audience. Right? Is that your experience?
No doubt about it.
Most of them.
Yeah, not all, but most of them. You're asking about a couple of interesting stories. I got two stories I'll tell you. One of them with Tom Petty. I think you may have heard of Tom Petty. He was a baby act, and he was an opening act to Meatloaf. Now Meatloaf was, and this tells you how the music business works, because Steve Popovich, who was a good friend of mine, he wound up signing Meatloaf after every record company had passed on Meatloaf. And Steve saw something there that he could sell. And so Steve comes to my office. He says, "Hey, hey Maver, I got some hot shit. You got to hear it, you know." And so he puts on the Meatloaf, so Steve said, "I want you to book him in all the Agoras," and of course I did. So and I got a gold record out of it, which is kind of a nice thing. But the night that they were playing at the Paynesville Agora, it was a sellout, and Meatloaf had finished his sound check, and Tom Petty was on stage, you know, supposed to be doing his sound check. Now we got 1,000 people on the sidewalk, and it starts to rain, okay? And then it starts to get rain a little harder, and so I went up on stage, and they're not even playing. Tom Petty's standing there smoking a cigarette like this, and I said, "Hey man, you know, you got to wrap it up because it's starting to rain." And he says, "I'm not done yet, man." And so I said, "Really?" I said, "Really? Open the doors," because those were all Meatloaf people outside. But there was that. One other thing, there's another show that comes to mind that's kind of interesting. It was a group called the Plasmatics. You may have heard of them. And the lead singer was a kind of a raunchy female. And so when I booked them into the Agora, you know, she had been arrested in a couple of cities for exposing herself. So we had the Vice Squad came to the show. They were standing back in the wings, and they were watching her, you know, there's nothing too bad here. So towards the end of the show, she goes backstage, took off her top, and she put whipped cream on her top. And so she came back out, and, you know, the whipped cream kind of came off a little bit, but they didn't think it was any big thing. They went home. Okay, so next day, there's an article on the front page of the Cleveland Plain Dealer that it was not by a rock writer, it was some you know, regular writer. And so they saw the article in the paper. They said, "Okay, we got it." So they went over to the hotel. They had a restaurant at the hotel.
Oh, jeez. Okay. All right, folks, we're going to turn it over. And again, because we're recording, there's the first hand up. We're going to try and get you on the microphone here.
Good evening. Tell me a little bit more about that Roadie Hall of Fame you referred to a few minutes ago. Where is it, and what's it all about?
Actually, it's this guy. He started it, and the very first guy is the oldest road guy in the world. Died recently. An old gentleman named Ben who worked with Willie and a bunch of people. But he's still trying to coordinate it with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and we're trying to get support for it, because without us and without the road people, what we do, you got no show. And we're a major part of it. So I was the fourth one to be inducted. Right now it's kind of an online institution, but they're trying to coordinate it with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But if anybody knows anything about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and it being out of Cleveland, there's so much politics involved that's absolute bullshit. That it's a slow process.
All right, other questions that everybody has to the two classic rockers. I'm not seeing real. Oh, here's one up here, Jay, and there's one there too. And then come on over here.
Over here.
Right there.
Oh, mine. Kevin, you had a story I heard from you, and I heard from our friend Todd Sharp, who I went to kindergarten with, about bringing him to Eddie Van Halen's house.
Actually, yeah, I'll do it real quick. We were doing this thing called NAMM. It's a National Associated Music Merchandisers, a huge convention. And my truck was in the shop, and I was going into the studio with Todd, but I was at NAMM all day with Edward and Michael. So Edward said he'd give me a ride to Todd's, and of course Edward was somewhat absent-minded during those years, and he locked his keys in his car. So it was very delayed. We finally got going. He finally gets me over to Todd's. It's like 1 in the morning. I was supposed to be there at 10 because we're going to the studio early the next morning. I was staying with Todd and Angela that night. And I go up to the door, and Todd's opening the door, and I hear something behind me. I turn around, and there's Edward. Because I've been telling him how incredible Todd was. And I go, what are you doing? He goes, well, I want to meet this guy. And so, long story short, you know, Edward said, hey, Dugan talked about you a lot. My name's Edward. And Edward's like, Todd's like, come on in. So they ended up breaking out guitars. Todd goes, let me play you some of what I'm doing. He goes, fuck that. You got some guitars? Let's go for the guns. So for the next 4 hours, they're sitting on the ground playing, and you know, just, it was like incredible. And when he left, I said, Todd, I'm so sorry. You know, that was so embarrassing. And Todd looks at me and goes, what? He goes, you bring Edward Van Halen to my house and I get to sit and jam with him for 4 hours? You don't apologize for that. Do it anytime you want. It was very cool. And when Edward passed away, Todd put a nice thing on social media about it.
All right, cool. Got a question right here.
Do you know how the Jack Daniels bass came about?
The
Me.
Jack Daniel.
Me.
Really?
Yeah, actually, Michael and I were on a long bus ride. He didn't want to fly. So he told me to come on the band bus, and we were sitting there having some Jack Daniels. I was pretending because I don't like Jack. And he said to me, I really want to kind of develop a bass that would become something that's a signature for me, that would be, you know, associated with me right off the bat. You know, something that we can have custom made. You know, think about it. And he's handed me the bottle of Jack, and I go, hey. So I said this, and he thought it was the stupidest idea in the world. And I said, no, seriously. So he said, it's your baby, you run with it. Anytime I brought it up, he made fun of me. So I got through the design. I went to Jack Daniels and got permission, got the artwork, had the whole thing cut and made, and I delivered it to him without electronics during rehearsals in 1984, and he opened up the case and looked at it and said, oh my God. And it became trademark, and now it's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And that's how I made it. It was my baby, it was my idea. And I know about 10 people take credit for that had never even met us.
Everyone, big round of applause. Kevin Dugan, Buddy Maver, Cleveland Classics. Guys, stick around, say hello to everybody, have another cocktail. Thank you very much. Get home safely, everybody. Thank you for coming out to the music box.
We were just talking about how Hank is my brother's godfather.
Yeah.
Yes?
Well, see, we're all connected, right?
We are.
Right. So, okay, you have want to say hi to Carla?
Hi, Carla.
And
All the best to you and all you do. Keep on rocking.
do you have like a special memory of Hank that?
Oh my God.
Every day's a memory of Hank. I mean, Hank was the smartest guy I ever knew. Very creative, very likable, quiet, confident, and he's an idea man. He had a million ideas, and usually he could make the idea come to fruition. You know what I mean?
In a big way, right?
In a big way.
Yeah.
He was my surrogate father. Not surrogate. I mean, what's the word I'm looking for?
Borrowed? I don't know.
He was my
Stand-in.
Huh?
Stand-in. He was your mentor, for sure. He definitely was a mentor.
He was like my father figure.
There you go.
And he never really knew it. He thought we were buds, which we were, you know. But great guy.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Nice meeting you.
Oh, you too.
Take care.
Yeah.
Hey Carla, happy holidays, how you doing? I'm here with Buddy Maver, you know, close associate of your father's. We paid tribute to your father tonight, just wanted to say hi and happy holidays. Doogie.
Can you give me just
Buddy
a?
Maver, say hi to Carla.
I already did.
Can you give me just a memory of Hank?
Hank Lacani is responsible for the success of most road guys that came out of Cleveland. Had a lot of bands. He gave us all a great start. But Carla, I told you that when we met at the Greek Theater in LA. your father is a legend, and he's the godfather of rock and roll to all of us.
Thank you very much.
Hey Carla, Weasel Strychnine, I don't know if you remember me, but shit, I started going to the Agora with a fake ID when I was 16, with the mistake downstairs and the Agora upstairs. And you know, I remember, God, your dad broke everybody from Southside Johnny, who I believe introduced Bruce Springsteen, doing We're Having a Party. For his encore show, I remember watching the Raspberries and Wally Bryson taking his jacket off and going. And somebody in the crowd goes, "Oh, Wally, you're so fab." You know, when God rest his soul, but when your dad passed away, that's the day the Cleveland music scene died, in my opinion. And I sure wish Henry Jr. was following your papa's footsteps. But I don't see it right now, but Kevin Dugan, one of the original Rowdy Roadies, is here tonight. And I'm sure he can even tell you better stories than myself. And then Andre O'Neill, the black original Cleveland roadie. Man, Andre, you know, he was tour manager with the Daz Band and Earth, Wind and Fire and Ziggy Marley. Your dad raised a lot of great men. And I'm thankful for your dad. And I'm gonna quit right now.
Well, we're gonna start gathering some of those stories. I'm gonna come up and see you again.
We are.
All right. Thank you. God bless you. It means a lot to me.
I was just gonna say you should come on the 23rd here.
Oh yeah, he's playing the 23rd with the, right?
A lot of other people.
Yeah, that's gonna be good. Yeah, I'm gonna try and make it back up.